Music for me is the closest thing to silence. Once you take the words out, once you take the mind out, and you leave everything inside, for me that is music. Music is the closest thing to silence. Where the tape would be going from one tape to one Revox to the other, you would record on the first head, have a short delay between the recording and the reading tape, and then it would be read again later, and then re-injected in the mixing table, so that it goes back as a mix with the original microphone. So that would make long delays and echoes, and once you synchronize them, once you synchronize your playing with the exact delay between the heads, you can have very trancy effects, because you go totally inside. You have to be really precise, and you can multiply the echoes and the effects, so it makes something very, very, very deep. The way it happened is I went to a concert in Paris. Somebody said to me, you have to see those Daga brothers. They were famous Indian singers, one of the first ones to come to the West. And they completely blew my mind, because what I thought was music, the boundaries were blown apart. And it was a revelation. I cried. I was crying, flowing tears during that concert in Paris. And at the end, I went to see them, and I was still crying. And one of the Daga brothers said to me, hey, what's happening? I said, I don't know, I don't understand, but your music touched me so much. I went to India to understand what was I feeling when I heard that music. I went to study with an Indian master, a singer. His name was Kumar Gandharv. But what India gave to me was the freedom of improvisation. And also I think it was a question of blowing my head of the Western culture, which I was full of and I could not get rid of. What is the beat? What we call the beat is, in India, is floating in space. It's a universe. So that I learned. I learned that there is no attachment to anything, that there is a freedom, but that there is a structure also. Because we talk about India, I want to tell you about this. So this is a prayer bead, very old, very old. I could not say how old it is, but it's very old. Here you can't, I don't know if you can see that, but it's a space person. So I don't know where that comes from. It's not incredible. I think it's Hanuman. But anyway, Hanuman was a supernatural person. A person. We are a person. He was a person. Because what I think is gods are persons. Deities are persons. They just transcended their human nature. That's all. So this was on a cane, wrapped around the cane, and how I met that was I was walking with my backpack, my flute in India in 1974, and pretty turned on. And here comes from the end of the road a sadhu with a cane walking. You know, the sadhus are really interesting people. You know, they have this Shiva third eye thing. They have a pitchfork or whatever. What is it called? With the three prong fork. And they walk like this, like, this is me. Consciousness is me. And don't you fool me. And I'm walking towards this being, and I'm pretty much feeling myself anyway. And we walk like this, and we come in front of each other, and we just looked at each other. And then we smiled, and then we exchanged presents. I gave him my hat, and he gave me his cane. I don't have the cane anymore because it fell apart, but I still have this beautiful prayer.
So when I came back from India, I was a bit lost. It was a clash of civilization for me in my head. I could not really function so well for a while. One of my dear friends from school, actually, was the technical director at the GRM. And he says, listen, if you want, I can get you a job at the GRM. This was after I could spend some time there in the studio alone when nobody was using it, because he would kindly give me the key. And so I knew the equipment, I knew how to use it. I said yes, and I went and became assistant to several composers. It was musique concrète, which is very different from Indian music, modal. The only thing I could say is it showed me that unlikely assembling of sounds of very different origins can have an interesting effect, an interesting result. For example, mixing birds. It happened because one day, I spent lots of hours in the studios there, and one time I found a recording of a bird. There were all kind of tapes everywhere, all kind of remnants or pieces and things like that. And one time I found this bird, and the bird was singing something very interestingly. It was like, now if you listen to this, it has a melody, it has a rhythm, and so on and so on. And so I started experimenting with that, and then found a guitar part which would fit with that, and then pretty soon I made a composition with that. But frankly, to record music of prepared pianos did not open my mind. Yeah, it did actually, because it showed me that crazy people can do crazy things and have a career with it. Because that's what happened. We spent time to prepare a piano for hours and hours, and at the end, this guy who was a an amazing piano player, started banging on the piano and ripping the chords and going with some hammers on the strings inside. And I said, poor piano. But personally, I prefer to go on the other side of the piano where you have the white and black keys and try to find some harmony there. The curious thing in my life is that I did not want to follow anybody. I mean, it's kind of crazy to say that and then become a disciple of this master or this, or become involved in a community or in a group or in a... So I'm not immune to this. But let's say in music, I didn't want to follow anybody. Because it's difficult. It's difficult. For a while I was making free jazz. So when you make free jazz, it's difficult not to follow Albert Ehler, for example, or Sun Ra Orchestra, because those are the fundamental people in this free jazz. But still, I could not follow what they were doing because it's their black blood, it's their African American, it's their culture, and it was not mine. So me, I'm more the Central Europe, Russian, Spanish, Middle East guy who float in that thing. So when I was doing my free jazz, I would have some touch of Russian. For me, poetry was always the possible which could be. Maybe poetry is an escape into arranging reality the way we would like. But having said that, I realized that if we would like it very much, then we can achieve that. And if we can visualize or imagine the poetry inside us, then we can have the poetry outside us. It's kind of a premonition or affirmation of what is possible.
Naître aux étoiles d'un autre monde. Voir l'aurore bleue d'un soleil vert et l'aube pâle qu'un ciel inonde aux portes d'un autre univers. Naître au silence de l'infini. Sentir le vent des galaxies. Changer de sens, changer de temps. Aux fenêtres d'un autre espace. naître au reflet de la glace. N'être que ce qui nous passe par la tête. N'être que cet instant qui passe.
If we shut up, we start hearing things. So right now I hear the water pump. I hear a hum, probably from my computer. And if I go into this, I can start making music.